Good evening. It's good to see everyone here, as well as those that are online. Thank you for tuning in. We're here tonight to call this meeting to order for public input for the fiscal year 2026 annual operating budget. So, Madam Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is our first of two required public input budget meetings, and Ms. Wynn is going to go over a preliminary budgeting with the board. Ms. Wynn?
Good afternoon, Madam Superintendent, Board, and welcome to our first public budget meeting, and we'll have our second one next month. And so for this public meeting, we're going to cover the topics that we're going to cover is our projected general fund, our projected special revenues, and our projected capital projects for FY26. And then we'll also do strategic planning and how that relates to our budgets. But before we get started with all of that, I want to take a minute to say, even though I'm the one up here talking for 30 minutes for the budget, it takes a village. And I want to thank everyone, all our directors, our principals, everyone with students information services and scheduling. Principals have to schedule students. We have to know how many teachers we need in the positions and how we need to serve the students. So all of the directors have many different budgets and budget programs, and I'm not going to go in and name those because I'll leave off something. But from special education directors, transportation, school nutrition. Ms. Martha prepares the entire school nutrition budget, and I don't want to leave anybody out, but there's just numerous duties that everybody has. Mr. Danner with construction and with maintenance, Dr. Roof with all the CTAE federal programs, Mr. Drury with transportation, Mr. Mathis, Ms. Tipton with all of the technology. Ms. Buchanan helps us with all the salary schedules. So there's just many people that play a big role in putting all of this together. Miss Heather with her Title I director and pre-K. So hopefully I haven't left anyone out, but it takes a village, and I want to thank everybody, principals, assistant principals, bookkeepers. There's just so many people, as well as the board and Superintendent Ms. Dillard for helping us and letting us expand our processes to make them better and more efficient. So just very thankful for everyone. It is more people than probably what you can name is involved in all the programs and the grants, the completion reports, and everything that goes into our budgets. So from there, let's get started. The General Assembly started its 40-day session on January the 13th. It ended the session April the 4th, 2025. The FY26 Appropriations Act did not provide for any salary increases for certified or classified employees. They did continue the $1,000 custodian salary supplement. And although we are a charter system, we continue to use the state salary schedules to determine our annual salaries for all our certified employees. And we have also, besides the state salary schedule for certified staff, we have a local supplement for all certified staff. And that was restored from 5% to 6% of base salary in FY19. We increased it from 6% to 8% in FY22. And then we increased it from 8% to 10% in FY25. And so in FY26, we are building the FY26 budget, increasing that local supplement from 10% to 12% for our certified staff. And then also, all of our classified staff will receive a 2% raise in any step increases that they're qualified to receive in our FY26 budget. So to explain that a little bit further, with a step increase and a 2% change in a scale, the employee receives a 4% raise if they have a step increase. And if they've worked the required number of days during the calendar year, then they receive a step increase. And so to kind of go back and give a little bit of history for our classified employees, at FY22, we started restructuring our classified salary schedules, and we implemented our first phase putting all of our classified employees on a salary schedule, because they wasn't all on one, and we updated our starting salaries for different classes of employees, as well as making the step increases percentages uniform for each scale, so that most scales had a 2% increase between each step. And then in FY24, we implemented our second phase of restructuring our classified scales. We updated starting salaries so that $12.50 was the lowest starting hourly rate of pay for our classified employees. So that included paras, school nutrition workers, custodians, receptionists. And then in FY24, the step 0 starting pay, to give you an example of a para with a high school degree and a custodian, they were both $10.69 an hour, and that changed to $12.50, and there was a 2% step increase for each step thereafter on those scales. So then in FY25, we updated our starting salaries so that $15 was the lowest starting hourly rate for classified employees, and we continue that 2% step increment in between each one of the steps for those scales. And then the majority of the remaining classified scales had received a 4% increase that year in order to maintain our competitiveness for those positions. And in FY24, we also changed the rate calculation for extracurricular trips for our bus drivers so that they received their standard straight hourly rate of pay when they were on those extracurricular trips, except for overnight trips. They're not paid for 8 hours of sleep time. And we also started in FY24 paying our bus drivers $30 for each double route that they had to drive. We continued that in 25, and we're building that in our FY26 budget to continue it as well. And then it's automatic that anyone working over 40 hours in a week receives the time and a half of regular pay if they're a classified employee. And then we're also continuing to maintain our bus driver substitute rate of pay at $15 an hour for 4 hours. In each of our departments, substitute rate of pay is $12.50 for our teachers, our paraprofessionals, our custodians, school nutritionists, and mechanics. So to continue on, the big change that has come about in FY26 for all counties is the change in the state health benefit plan changes. So I've put together a schedule here for you to be able to look at each fiscal year, and you can see the employer cost that has been paid by the board for certified employees, the dates that anything was changed, and that was changed, those dates were by law. Then our classified employees, the amount that was paid, and that's per member per month that's listed here, and the dates that those were changed. So to do a summary of the increase for certified employees, it has increased since FY22, 99.47%. And for classified employees, that cost has increased 99.47% since FY23. And to actually give you the difference, if they had changed the rate instead of $1,885 per member per month to $1,890, it would have been a 100% increase. So they just kept it under $5 a month under that increase. But we currently have 244 certified employees that take state health coverage and 164 classified employees that take the state health coverage. So based on that current enrollment of the bill that we paid this past month, our SHBP employer cost is going to increase $1,347,032 for FY26. And that's just the increase. The actual required contribution projected at the $22,620 a year for each person is going to be $9,228,960 for employer cost health coverage.
And that's not all benefits, correct? That's just state health
That
benefits.
is just the required contribution for the state health benefit coverage. And so to continue on the other benefits, these are projected rates since we don't know what these rates are going to increase in January 2026. But the board has always funded a portion of each employee's single health care insurance coverage, and that currently is funded at $82.67 per month. And the single dental coverage is funded at $27.32 per month. So we're building that in the 26 budget. and that's a benefit for our employees is $1,319 per year for each employee that works in the Fannin County School System. So that projected cost for FY26 is $538,511.
And Ms. Wynn, if a person should choose to do something besides single coverage and they wanted to do family coverage, the board has historically put that amount as a benefit toward that employee's.
Yes, ma'am. Every employee that's enrolled receives the coverage for the single bronze, and so it's that amount of money if they have family that's deducted. So they still receive a benefit. And then our teacher retirement employer rate increased from 19.98% to 20.78% in FY25, and that is increasing to 21.91% for FY26. So to kind of give you a little bit of background as well on those health coverage rates, and I know this is accounting, but what we pay out for our teachers in July and August are salaries that I accrue that will go back to June. So those health care coverages are going to also affect our 25 expenditures, and that'll be about $161,000 increase in our FY25 expenditures because of the health insurance increase. So then we can talk about we don't have a lot of information on our revenues at the moment. Notices of tax assessments should go out maybe towards the end of June, so we should have some preliminary numbers for the digest around the end of June, so I'll have those for the next budget meeting. But the only actual real numbers that we have at the moment is our QBE numbers from the state. So in FY25, our QBE earnings were $12,868,625 for 220.89 funded positions. And our actual QBE funding for this year is going to be $13,524,677 for 221.62 positions. So we're actually gaining $656,052 in state funding this year, which is really when the next slide I can explain why we're gaining that funding. This is the local 5 mil share that we've talked about, and originally earlier in the year we had projected about $13 million for our local 5 mil, but our actual local 5 mil this year is going to be $12,860,378. But what is listed up here is for the entire state, so that's $3.479 billion, and the state had to reduce it $660 million because they were going over the 20% that they're allowed to go over for the QBE funding. So that is why our funding ended up being a little bit higher, which is good. But to continue on, we do have a healthy fund balance that's going to support our increase in the healthcare cost and TRS cost and our salary increases and any needed transfer in case of our construction cost and timing with SPLOST collections. And I can talk about that a little bit later when we get to that point. But we're also debt-free, and we're not paying interest, but we're earning interest. And so in our next public budget meeting, I'll have a lot more detail for our general fund.
And Ms. Wynn, you spoke a little bit ago about the tax digest. You'll have those numbers if the county can get them, because you work with the county very closely.
I'm anticipating having projected numbers for our July budget meeting. So we should have those by that time period to be able to include those in and have. In the July budget meeting, I'll actually end up having you a budget ready that you could approve to advertise in the newspaper at that time period. So to continue on special revenues, there's not a lot of information on that as well, but to explain what special revenues are, they are the special revenue funds that are used to account and report for proceeds of specific revenue sources that are restricted or committed to expenditures for specific purposes other than debt service and capital projects. And that is, we can go on and see, that's our Title I, that's our Title II, our Title IV, Title 5B, our school nutrition funds, our pre-K funds, all of our CTEAE Perkins that are the federal funds, not the CTEAE that's the state funds, and then all of our IDEA, which is our special revenue funds. Those are all federal programs that fall in special revenues. So now we can move on to our capital projects. And so we are very thankful to all of the Fannin County citizens and their support of the Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax for education. SPLOST has provided funding for system-wide remodeling, renovation, upgrading at all of our schools, and it's provided the CTAE Agricultural Education Center, the Staff Development Center, our transportation facility, land for future projects, and also currently the athletic complex that's well underway in construction, which we can go out there and see daily how much has changed. And it also provides for our HVAC systems, buses, textbooks, telephone communication systems, system technology, vehicles, safety and security equipments, upgrades to our print and electronic media collections, and school nutrition equipment that's needed. So our current FY26 SPLOST budget, I actually have that detailed out for you, that we have allocated $215,000 for textbooks, $90,000 is for our STEM. Our school allocations, all of them together, is $545,500. Media altogether gets $25,000. Our technology is $680,000. Transportation, $782,500. General SPLOST, $620,000. Road project, $585,000. School nutrition, $189,000. Show barn, the $750,000. The athletic complex, this is $21,656,000, which is my projected as to what won't be paid for by June 30th, since we're well underway with construction. And these are the HVAC projects and the amount that's already been approved for those projects that we're getting started on. So our SPLOST revenues was $10,570,593 in '24, and we're projecting it to be $10,757,646 in FY25. And then at the moment I'm using our monthly SPLOST sheet, the $885,486 that's on our monthly SPLOST sheets, that where we see if we've grown or not grown, to project our FY26 revenue. So that would make that revenue be $10,625,000. And so effectively, we're saving 3.10 meals at our current cost of 1 meal, which is $3,425,731, by receiving our SPLOST funds for everyone visiting and making purchases in Fannin County. So this is the detailed SPLOST budget, which is by program and then also by function, where I've put everything together, where I had listed it by category. Then it now has to be listed by function, which Department of Education requires. So for everything that was listed, if the timing of paying out all of the complex, if it's finished, and then the revenues, general fund may need to transfer $3,074,721 to the SPLOST funds, depending on when construction's completed and the amount of SPLOST funds as the timing goes. So that is built into that budget as well.
Can you go back to that for just a second?
Mm-hmm. So now, and you can ask whatever question, but when I have transfers between funds, that's an accounting thing, because like the complex is one fund number, the HVAC, each one of those are a separate fund number, and each fund has to balance to zero. So all of our SPLOST funds goes into one fund that's $375, and it has to be transferred out to those other funds as the money's spent.
And Ms. Wynn, if I'm correct, you have to keep the separate SPLOST separated for accounting purposes. So SPLOST 5 has to be handled and accounted for in isolation of itself before we start doing SPLOST 6.
That is correct, because the year in which we finish the SPLOST that we're currently in and we start spending the other SPLOST, you will have two separate SPLOST schedules that's published in the newspaper as well as in our financial statements, because those have to maintain, and they have to stay in a separate checking account as well.
Okay, and also the 3 million that we anticipate having to transfer to pay our SPLOST account from general fund, what it is that we have our construction rate and our construction expenditures projected for next year will actually go quicker than what our collection will be. It's not that we will be 3 million in the hole overall, it's that we'll be $3 billion for the collection rate for SPLOST next year, not for the cap of what SPLOST 6 is.
That is correct. And also in my projection, I'm saying we're going to finish the complex, and the complex may not be finished. It may lack a couple of months as well. So just to be on the safe side, I'm cutting it that, saying that we would finish 100% of the complex, where you don't know with weather and everything else, but they're projecting, I think, like a couple months afterwards.
But my preference is if it's planned and that's the rate that we've been going, is that we include it in the budget so you all would know up front. And if our construction does exceed at the rate that it's been going and we spend more that we have to pay that we have to use some money from general fund, then it is legal that once we collect that money in from SPLOST that we pay our general fund back. Is that correct?
Correct. You just can't carry it out. You got to go ahead and do it the next year. You can't carry it out and do other projects first. But also it's better to budget that we're going to finish the entire project than them come up and have it finished and we didn't budget for it.
Right, because the money is promised.
Correct. And we've already signed the contract. Does that answer your question? Okay. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is our school system strategic plan and budget. And part of being an exemplary board is making sure that our budget supports our strategic plan. So strategic goal 1 is attaining a high level of student achievement. And action step 2 of that goal says that we're going to provide technology to students and faculty to enhance personalized learning, improve mastery of academic standards, and prepare students for post-secondary careers. And so we're doing that with our SPLOST budget, providing technology equipment for our students and our faculty. Our students receive a one-on-one Chromebook, which they can take home in grades 3 through 12. And all pre-K through second grade students either receive an iPad or a Chromebook. And so technology equipment is replaced on a set cycle depending on that type of device. And we build that into our SPLOST budget. And then our general fund budget also provides hotspots for students to have internet access at home. And the students are able to check out the hotspots in order to do homework and access everything that they need to do on their Chromebooks. And strategic goal 1 also, attaining a high level of student achievement. Action step 3 says we're going to design learning tasks and opportunities that are challenging, require real-world problem solving, capitalize on student interest, encourage risk-taking, foster positive change, promote creative but viable solutions. And our teachers within our STEAM and our STEM programs and our CTE programs, our fine art programs are consistently providing opportunities and learning tasks to our students that are challenging, requiring that problem solving, and capitalizing on student interest and promoting creative but viable solutions. And then in FY25, we utilize SPLOST funds, the general fund, the Title IV funds to purchase items to support that, which was robotics equipment, K-12, 3D printing supplies and equipment, food nutrition equipment, physical education equipment, art and music supplies, and equipment, engraving equipment, healthcare, service supplies and equipment, carpentry equipment, welding equipment, audio video equipment, engineering, automotive, and agricultural equipment. And so strategic goal 2, it develops organizational effectiveness. And action step 2 is to leverage the power of our in-house professional learning communities to support school and district goals. And our QBE staff development budget in our general fund provides funds to all of our schools and the district for staff development and we're able to host in-house professional learning for teachers and other staff members at our Staff Development Center. And our Title II-A, Improving Teacher Quality, provides for stipends for teachers and mentor leaders in our Education Development Program. And Strategic Goal 2, also for developing organizational effectiveness, the Strategy B is to build relationships within the school community to foster a positive, safe, and innovative learning environment. And Step 2, prioritizing building those relationships with each learner by reaching out to students who may be struggling or not engaged in the school community through counseling, advisement, and mentoring. And our general fund pays for extra teachers, instructional staff members, counselors, a licensed clinical social worker, a behavioral sports specialist, and a graduation coach. The general fund also pays for extra teachers at our Impact Academy at the high school, which was created to provide opportunities for more students to graduate from high school. And all of these positions, along with all teachers and support staff members, including our school nutrition workers, our bus drivers, and custodians, work together to build relationships with our students. And so the Strategic Goal 3, ensuring stakeholder support and satisfaction, that action step 3 says we'll develop and sustain partnership with business, public and private organizations, and community to continue to improve our literacy, STEM, and CTAE throughout the school system. And we hosted, the Fannin County School System hosted a CTAE stakeholder meeting with various community and partner members, business partners, January 22nd from 8:30 to 10 at the Staff Development Center. And we received valuable input from these partners to help us improve our CTAE program. We also hosted a district and school improvement meeting on April 15th, where we collaborated with several school system employees who provided us with input on our consolidation LEE improvement plan, or CLIP. And do we have any questions? 3 minutes to spare.
Mr. Danner, did we have any public comment?
Well, if there is, excuse me, if there is no public comment, I would entertain a motion to adjourn this call meeting.
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor by raised hand? It is unanimous. We are adjourned.
About 3 minutes.